Welcome back, everybody, to Not Two Old Timers. I'm Brian,
And I'm Corey.
and we are two not too old timers sitting around telling stories and talking about things. So, Corey, what would you like to talk about today? Let's talk about things. Let's tell stories this time.
Let's tell stories.
Yeah, what do
Military
you want to?
stories, blow up
Yeah,
stories, bullets whizzing
yeah.
overhead stories.
Well, no, not nothing like that. But like, I don't know. What's a good story to tell?
Hmm.
Because we said the intro says telling stories and
Is-
talking about
That
things.
is that is true. Oh, there was something that came up. Okay. I'm gonna talk to this. I haven't thought of this story in a long time, but today when I was driving, this story popped up in my head. So being a flight chief, I had, as a master sergeant, I had what 70 something people under me. And they were all maintainers. They were all aircraft maintainers, and they were just a bunch of goofballs. And some of them were fucking crazy, you know. Um, I had I had moved into a new shop. So the chief calls me up one day, and it was such an epic week for me because um, my my assignment extension had gotten approved on Wednesday or on Monday, and so I was approved to stay in my current duty location for an extra 2 years or 3 years. It was extra 3 years, I think. Yeah, 3 years. And then on Tuesday, Chief calls me up and he says, "Hey, Corey, uh, the guy down the guy down in the other unit is getting ready to leave island soon. I need a replacement for him. We don't have one coming in. The rest of the guys are deployed, but I need you to go down there and run that shop." And I was like, "Word." And at the time, I was in the unit that I absolutely despised, and I fucking hated being there. It was such shit. And so on Friday, I called him back up and I said, "Hey, Chief, I'm in this new unit. I'm fully integrated. I'm fully processed. I'm fucking running." And he was like, "Oh my God, dude. I meant like in a month or two." And I said, "Too late. I'm already here." And
No
so,
take backsies.
yeah. And so I hit the ground running. And this was my old unit when I was lower ranking. I really enjoyed being back there, right? Um, and uh, I ended up having a couple of knuckleheads in the shop who were pretty radically out of control. And remember last show we were talking about instilling discipline, holding standards, right? And nobody in that shop that was in charge of anything were holding these individuals to standards and holding them to accountability. I had one dude who wasn't even showing up in the morning. In other branches, they call it formation. At the time in the Air Force for that unit, we just called it roll call.
Yeah, roll
And
call.
it was
Yeah.
you show up, you form up, you go down the list, you make sure everyone's there, you hand out the duty assignments, you get the day organized. And this kid wasn't even showing up for that. And so when I inquired, I said, "Hey, I've got this name on my list." And honestly, I don't remember the kid's name today, but I got this name on my list. Who is this kid? I've never once seen him. What's the story with him? Get his boss in here. Let me ask. And so I start speaking with his staff sergeant. It turns out that he's got hospital, quote unquote, hospital appointments in the morning. Okay, that's cool. Where the fuck is he the rest of the day? And so this dude, eventually I get him into the office, standing in front of my desk, and this guy has got the longest hair I've ever seen an active duty member have while in uniform. And I was like, "What the fuck am I looking at right now? Like, is this a joke?" And something was going on with this kid because he couldn't look up at me. He was incapable of making eye contact with me. And I was just asking him simple questions. I wasn't even trying to like fucking ride his ass about anything at the time. And so I'm asking him questions. What are you doing? Where do you stay? Like, where have you been? What's the thing? What's going on with this? Digging. And it's just like bullshit line after bullshit line after bullshit line. I'm like, this kid is fucking lying his ass off to me. I don't even know who the fuck he is. What's the reason for all of this? And I'm going through all this stuff. And long story short, it turns out that he just hasn't been showing up to work, and he's been telling everybody he has these hospital appointments. And everyone's just been accepting it because he's such a big piece of shit. when he's present for duty, that everybody's
Yeah.
thankful that he's just not there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm about
Yeah.
to
Don't get
change
me
that.
started on that part of it, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I'm about to change that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh,
So I get this kid, okay, that's fine if you have hospital appointments, but you're gonna show up for roll call in the morning. So if you have hospital appointments that conflict with that time, you're gonna reschedule that. That you're doing that. Do not disobey that, you know. Um, and so let's forward a couple of months down the road. I find out that this guy is talking about he doesn't even live in his barracks room, his dorm room, that he's been staying at a friend's house and he's taking care of his friend's dog. And I thought, oh, that's really nice of you to do, you know, helping somebody who's out and shit. It turns out that he's staying at one of my staff sergeant's house, and they just happen to have a new puppy together. And I'm
okay.
like, okay, I'm not gonna fucking take the shovel to this too much because I really don't want to know.
Don't ask questions you don't want the answers
I
to.
really don't want to know. But this situation is gonna have to correct itself, you know.
Well, no, real quick, just to clarify, was that staff sergeant his boss or
No,
just a staff sergeant in the
no, it
section?
was just a staff sergeant within the
Okay.
section,
All
right?
right.
Within the
All right.
same section, right?
All right.
And so
Understood.
now we start reaching like unprofessional
Yeah.
relationships and stuff, you know. And I had no idea whether I still to this day do not know if it was a sexual relationship or not. I don't fucking care, right? But
Don't ask, don't tell.
right. As soon as I start to put my foot down on that situation and get it corrected, we have the big typhoon that comes through here, right? And we all got locked down, and you know, we have these whatever T-core conditions, which is when the typhoons roll through and the winds get too heavy, it's too dangerous to be outside, and there's different levels, and eventually you got to go inside your residence and stay in there. You can't even go outside to smoke. It's kind of impossible to go outside and smoke, you know. People lose their fingers as they get jammed in the doors trying to open them because the wind hits it. But
Yeah.
during this
And
typhoon,
for clarification, T-core is typhoon condition of readiness.
thank you. I couldn't.
Go
I did.
ahead.
I thought about saying it, but I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. All
All
right.
right. Go ahead.
So we get locked down as this big ass storm passes through, and anyone that's been in a typhoon, it's like a small typhoon is like a Cat 5 hurricane. It's crazy. They're really small.
Was,
They're really tight. They're really powerful, right? But they're
was that
quick.
in 19? That was in 19, right? That was that big one in 19.
I believe you're right. No.
Yeah.
Hold on. 17, 18, 19. It might have been 20. 20? Yeah, I think it was 20 because the COVID stuff was still happening.
Oh,
Right.
so this was after COVID kicked off?
This
Okay.
was after COVID was already going. And so
Okay.
we
All
were
right.
because I remember we might have been in limbo of wearing masks and stuff. And so this typhoon hits, and in the middle of the typhoon, I get a call from the first sergeant. And I'm answering the phone and I'm talking to him like, Steve, what the fuck are you calling me for, man? In the middle of a typhoon. He goes, hey man, I just spoke with the cops on base. They got off the phone with the Japanese cops. 2 of your airmen are apprehended with the Japanese cops. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be good in the middle of a typhoon, right? And he goes, when we're out of this, let's just say, hypothetically, it's this day, we get out of our lockdown. In the morning, let's go meet at the cop shack, right? And so we ended up meeting at the cop shack. So at some point in time, this house full of knuckleheads was all fucking drunk and high and going fucking crazy, partying, right? Decided that they were hungry and they wanted to go out and eat something. So they all hopped in the car and started driving to go eat something in the middle of this crazy ass powerful typhoon where nothing's open, right?
Yeah.
And
Say everything
so
closes.
yeah, exactly. But in their state, hallucinogenized, is that a word? Whatever. In their current state, they failed to realize that they couldn't find a place to eat. The driver of the vehicle, the story gets even more complicated than that. I'm trying to think. All right, so the vehicle wasn't even owned by any of those guys. It was owned by one of the other kids in the shop who was currently deployed. So it wasn't even
Okay.
their fucking vehicle. They were just
Okay.
supposed to be watching it, but they were using
Okay.
it to to fucking party and drive in, right?
Okay.
So they parked this car in the middle of the road, and I think what happened is they thought they got to their destination and they thought they parked their car, but what ended up happening is their music was on loud, the car was running, the keys were ripped out of the ignition, it was in the middle of the road with the doors open, right? The driver of the vehicle had gotten out and went to a house that was nearby and broke into the house and fell asleep on the couch.
Okay.
Well, the
As you do, I guess.
yeah, I right? So the owner of that house calls the police. The police
Wait,
show
wait, wait,
up.
wait. Please tell me it was a local.
It was absolutely, it was an old man. It was an old man. So we've got a military international incident happening in the middle of a typhoon with this drunk fucking crazed out kid who's breaking into old man houses and falling asleep on their couches.
Old
The
man
car
houses.
the car is in front of the house in the middle of the road, um, still running, right? With another one of my airmen passed out in the back seat. Music fucking blasting, right? That airman in the back seat was that staff sergeant.
Okay.
Woo, boy.
All
Um,
right.
the passenger side of the car was also opened, and the door was open, right? And so that third individual that I had mentioned, I believe, we were never able to prove it, was the passenger in that car. But he had some kind of a clarity moment and decided that he was just going to get the fuck out of there. And I think probably like he came to and realized that there was flashing lights around and he was like, "Nope, I'm not doing this," and just fucking darted. Because when I started in the investigation process and questioning what was happening, he couldn't give me a straight answer on what happened to that night, like a timeline of events. And he was just like, "Yeah, these guys, they came home at like when the sun came up and it was no problem, no big deal. It was all good. They went out to get something to eat. I wasn't a part of it, and oh my God, it was great. Um, oh, it was fucking great, dude. It was just chaos. It was such chaos, right? When we went to the cop shack, the on-base police, and we picked up our airmen that had been transferred from the Japanese cops to the on-base Air Force cops. The Japanese police looked at the Air Force cops and seriously told their master sergeant that went to pick these guys up, "This guy is crazy. Please get him the fuck away from us." Right? Like, get this dude, and that was the staff sergeant, get him off like, we don't want to process him for anything. He's not a DUI. He didn't do breaking and entering. He was sleeping in the back of a car. This not on us. But we don't want to fucking take care of this guy anymore because he was such a big problem for them that they
Was
were
he just
just
being
like,
belligerent or
yeah,
what?
exactly. And they were just like,
Oh,
hands
okay.
off, hand him over to the Air Force. And so this Air Force dude comes out and meets with us, and the first thing he says is, "So about your staff sergeant." And I went, "Oh, I see you met," and I said his name, and he goes, "Yes." And he tells me these stories of what he's been doing, and he was just like being a fucking dickhead to these guys and just being, just talking fucking down to
And
them and
was he still
not
drunk at this
cooperating.
time?
No, not, I mean, he was probably still had something in the system, but not like horribly, right? But
Oh,
like he
okay.
was in the bathroom in the mirror fixing his hair, just like not giving a fuck.
And this
Oh
was
my
the staff
God.
sergeant?
That was the staff sergeant. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it was great. And so this was a really good opportunity because I was able to effectively use this situation along with many other situations of him continuously failing to uphold standards, uh, and give him a well-deserved senior airman stripe, a stripe less, and go, "Okay, if you want to be friends with airmen, you can now appropriately be friends with airmen." He actually came to me and he goes, "You gave me counseling a while ago and said that I could not be friends with the airmen, uh, now that I'm an airman, can I be friends with the airman? And I was like, absolutely, dog. You're an airman. You could do whatever the fuck you want as an airman. Oh
Within the
my
scope of being
God,
an
bro.
airman.
I was like, I'm not going to hold you accountable to being a staff sergeant when I've taken that stripe away from you.
Yeah, man, that's ridiculous.
Oh,
And I get alcohol makes people do stupid shit, but you know,
the whole situation was so nuts.
yeah.
It was just
I
one of those
mean,
stories that's in my memory, and it popped up when I was driving today, and I was like, "Oh my God, dude!" Just the picture in my head of the car in the street, the dude in the background, the poor fucker who came back in and fucking ran away before he got apprehended by the cops, and just like had to figure out, number one, where the fuck am I?
yeah, where the fuck did these people take me?
Why do I not have any shoes on? Right? Like it's raining, it's storming, it's like really bad weather. How am I going to
Uh,
get back to where I need to go? And how
and
long it took him. Like he must have been walking around trying to figure out where he was for like 8 fucking hours trying to get
was
back to that house.
was
That was
this cat the
nuts.
guy you initially started with? This
Yeah.
is the
Yeah, yeah,
airman.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, it was so funny. It was such all 3 of those members got kicked out eventually for various
Oh, okay.
reasons, for various
Good.
reasons.
Good.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
And I remember I wrote a uh like a bullet statement for like a fucking shop package or something like that, and it was something about that situation and discharge of the airmen, and it was something about massive impact on quality force retention.
All right.
Oh, I would like I probably have it somewhere written down, but I absolutely loved it. It was great. So funny. What a shitty
Yeah.
situation, dude. I hated dealing with shit like that when I was in. Like, I don't have to do when I really look at like retirement today, I don't have to deal with those situations anymore. I hated being a daddy to fucking pieces of shit who just couldn't effectively navigate life. Like, I get it, you get in trouble, but just those ones that just couldn't do it, you know? Oh, what a
Yeah.
stress load that I don't have to deal with anymore. It's great. I can look back on all those thoughts and just laugh and go, "Fuck, that shit sucked."
Yeah.
So I want to push this because I think this is an important clarity on that story is I say all of that with my own personal experience of being that level of troublemaker, right?
Right.
But for the most of it, I didn't break into an old man's house and fall asleep on his couch.
Yeah. Or
I
DUI
never did
or
get apprehended by the Japanese cops.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
never was belligerently uh fucking resisting whatever.
Yeah, that'll be another episode for us to talk about all the shit we got
But
in.
boy, do I have my experience doing the rest of that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think the airman story that sticks out to me the most is I had an airman that showed up to my shop right out of tech school, and he seemed okay. I mean, he was a little weird, little odd, but nothing that you haven't seen before. And he showed up, and then within like a week, he came in and he was like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I lost my travel card in the States, and I just got the bill, and there's a bunch of
Oh no.
charges to a strip club on
Oh,
there."
I knew it. I knew it.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, if you lost your travel card, did you call the card company?" He was like, "I didn't know what to do, so that's why I'm talking. I'm
Huh?
asking you." I said, "Yeah, call the card company, dispute the charges, tell them you lost your card, blah, blah, blah." And so he said, "Okay, cool, thanks, sir." And then he runs off. And mind you, this is like one striper or whatever. And he eventually, I get a call from the first sergeant, and he calls. He says, "Hey, can you come
They
down to
get
the
the
office?"
reports. Yep.
Yeah. And I said, "Okay, yeah." So I go down there, and he's real cool. I have a decent relationship with the shirt at the time, and he was like, "Hey, listen, man. Uh, we saw these charges. Your airman apparently disputed them. They sent us photos of him making those charges at that strip club. So not only did he not lose his
They got
card,
evidence. Oh, bad.
not only did he not lose his card, he was the one charging I think it was like $5,000-$6,000. He maxed out his travel card, whatever it was at the time, on of charges at the strip club.
On titties.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So, we call him in. He agrees to a deferred thing where he pays back the card. They're basically garnishing his paycheck. He
Yep.
lived in the dorms. He ate at the chow hall,
Yep.
whatever.
Like a 12-month
Yeah.
payback period, something.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
He seemed real sorry. He said he had an alcohol problem and he was going to meetings.
Walling out, man. Fuck yeah, I like it. I like the kid already.
Yeah. So eventually, he starts being late and shit like that, and it's one of those things where he's, you could just tell that he's just distracted by life. You know what I mean? One of those things where he wasn't a very good mechanic. I don't know how he ever became an engine troop, but so eventually I had to call him in the office, and I was like, "Hey, listen, man." Because it was CDCs, that's what it was. He was falling behind on his CDCs.
For those who are not familiar, CDCs is an upgrade requirement in skill level, and it's career development
course.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's just material you study, you test on.
All right, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. So yeah, he was behind on his CDCs, and then he took his first CDC test and he failed. So we put him on remedial training. You do your 8 hours of work, you stay 4 hours extra studying CDC under supervision. About a week goes by, and one of my staff sergeants comes to me and was like, "Hey, you got so-and-so sitting in the conference room studying CDCs. He's in there reading a book, like a fantasy book." So I walk over there, and
he's got like a fucking novel of like space and shit, and he's like,
his CDCs aren't open.
Life
He's just
on
in there
Mars.
reading a regular book. So I open the door and I start, I'm like, "What are you doing? This is you're supposed to be here studying." He was like, "I was just taking a break." I was like, "No breaks. There's no breaks. You study your CDCs until you can pass." So I pull him into my office. I stand him at attention. I start talking to him, and I drill him. Get it in your head. You're gonna do this. He said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." And he goes back in there. 20 minutes later, the staff sergeant comes back, says, "I just walked by," and he's looking at his CDC. So I walk around to the window behind him, and he's got the book inside the CDCs.
That must have been a good book.
So I go around, I look as well, and sure as shit, he's in there reading that book behind his CDCs. So I tap on the window, and he turns around like he's got no care in the fucking world. And he looks at me, and he was like, and he just kind of shook his head, and he put his book down, put the CDCs down, stood up, and started walking towards my office. So I said, "Go home. You're done for tonight. We're gonna talk to the shirt in the morning. We're gonna get this worked out." Shirt was like, blah, 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 started tearing into him. And this Shirt was an ex-cop, was an ex-security forces guy. So
I like how they move around like that.
Yeah. So he really tore into him, blah, blah, blah. The kid just he never could pass his CDCs. And so eventually we were going to kick him out. We were getting ready to process to kick him out. And he ended up crashing his car, that he didn't have a driver's license apparently, but he had borrowed a car from somebody, or he bought a car, like a junker car, ended up crashing it into a telephone pole somewhere. Well, when the cops got there, and this was on base, mind you, when the SPs got there, they noticed a whole ton of the dust-off cans.
Oh no!
In the back of his car, all empty. Probably 15 of these fucking things. And then a couple of them sitting in the passenger seat. So apparently he wasn't drinking.
He was melting brain cells.
Yeah. He was huffing this, these dust off things.
Yeah.
So the shirt was just like, okay, you're done. You're going. We're sending you to a court martial. They didn't even offer him an Article 15. They sent him to a court martial. He got court martialed. He ended up going to the brig over at Pensacola, the naval brig, because
Mm-hmm.
the base I was at didn't have a brig. And the shirt was like, and they sent him there for a year. So he was in there for a year. The shirt sent me over there every month to check on him. And the kid, after he got sober and he got his mind straight, he was just like, I don't think I was ever meant to be in the military. He was like, I just could never get my head around the idea that I had to do what another person told me to do. I was like, but that's what you understand. You volunteered for this. He was like, yeah, I get it, but it's just like every time you told me to do something, I just had this compulsion to do the exact opposite. And it's like, man, really, you know, and it just blew my mind, and I get that there are people that are selfish and controlling, but the idea that you would put yourself in a position to where you could literally go to prison for quite a long time because you can't follow orders. You
Mm-hmm.
literally, there's something mentally blocking you from following orders. But then I thought, how'd you get through basic training? How'd you get through tech school? Mind you,
No
this was
free
in
access to
2000.
dust.
Yeah, well, this was in 2008. So remember in 2005, they started changing how they approached younger airmen. They stopped
Oh
the
yeah,
yelling.
dude.
Yeah.
They
So
went real light, like real light. Oh, that was affecting our inflow airmen. Oh, the quality
yeah,
dropped so
yeah.
bad
So this was around that
because they
time
had never
frame
been
where,
yelled at, and suddenly they're hitting the field to me, and I'm an asshole, and they're like, "Oh my
yeah,
god."
yeah, you're hurting my feelings.
Yeah, and I'm
And
looking
during
at
my,
them like, "You fuck this up, you kill people, dickhead. Get it fucking
yeah,
right." And they're like,
yeah,
"But you
and
gotta be so serious because it's fucking serious."
yeah, it's like, you don't understand the responsibility you hold. I mean, your job, my job, we have different jobs in the military, but they both, the airmen literally had human lives in their hands. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's not just about the aircraft, it's about the pilots. You got to look at it. You mess this up, you could put a plane down, you
Mm-hmm.
know, a plane that's in flight. Not
Right, right.
This might not break on the ground. This might break when they're at 35,000 feet or whatever. So it was. But his reasoning was just, it was so foreign to me that you would join the military knowing that you had a hard time with authority.
Honestly, I think that there are a high number of individuals within the military that effectively have a hard time with authority. It's like a love-hate relationship that a lot of members in the military have. But it's just a matter of, can you just simply do the task instead of rebel from the task? For
Yeah,
most, right? It's a
yeah.
battle. Yeah, you can complain while you're doing it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the old adage that they say, if you're given an order that you don't believe is correct or that you don't believe is right, you still do what you were told,
Mm-hmm.
and then you bring it up afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The Y generation, the generation of when you tell somebody to do something, they ask why,
Mm-hmm.
is too prevalent. And the military's trying to swing back in the right direction. I get it. Um,
It's coddled to that a lot.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, we're gonna have a hard road to hoe when it comes to trying to get back to the
Who the
do
fuck
what
is
you're
we,
told
dog?
when you're told.
Who the fuck is
What's that?
we? That ain't me. We? No, I'm done with that bullshit.
We as a country, we as a country, we as a military. Yeah, you're right. I ain't got to do it. I go
Exactly.
and I laugh at the Marines all the time because they see me and I just kind of walk through with 5 o'clock shadow or
Hell
whatever.
yeah.
Just
Like
yeah,
I'm not enlisted. I'm not with you guys.
yeah.
I
It's
just
like
work here.
I did my time. You
Yeah,
treat it like
exactly.
prison nowadays. I did my
Exactly.
time, fool.
Oh gosh. So you actually hit on something that reminded me of an extension of the story I just told. So that staff sergeant that was in the back of the car sleeping, who was apprehended, the Japanese cops gave him over, and it was like, get this fucking dude away from me. I want to fast forward to earlier, before I ever met this kid. He had been new to that shop and was out riding motorcycles, had gotten his motorcycle license. He wanted to be a cool kid, took the motorcycle training course and everything, was riding around. And he was actually riding, and I didn't know that this was him at the time, right? But I remember the incident. But he was riding with one of my coworkers in the other unit, another master sergeant, and they had a pack and they were riding up north in the mountains, and I remember him telling me the story. Suddenly, this kid just like throttles it and fucking throttles past the entire pack and just leaves them behind, just like gone. He's
Okay.
like, I'm fucking gone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go have some fun, right? Well, it turns out this kid only made it a couple of corners before he ran off the road, hit a guardrail, fucking hit a tree, and then fell down a cliff and just like broke everything in this dude's body, you know. And I question why today, knowing what I know about him and everything in the future, what in him made him want to throttle past the whole group, where when the incident happened, there was nobody even around to see it. They just saw the trail of damage, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Nobody actually witnessed it happen. And so it wasn't a thing to look cool in front of everybody, right? But anyways, so they did the whole they actually had to medevac him to Hawaii. He was in Hawaii for probably like a year, right? But I think when and again, I say this with love because I understand the complications behind it. But I think while he was in the hospital, he was on some serious pain medication, and I understand it,
Uh,
right? But I
yeah.
think he built up an addiction from that, and struggled with that addiction once he came back to the unit, right?
Yeah.
And later on, he didn't. He didn't have a SOFA. We talked about SOFA driver's license. He didn't have driving privilege anymore because he ended up getting in a car accident, and he hit a power pole, a Japanese power pole, which are made of concrete, and he broke it,
Yeah.
right? And it put him in the hospital again. But he was intoxicated when he did it. Um,
Mm.
and I think this kid learned a real valuable lesson at that time in how to escape responsibility, because he was facing, number one, he did lose his driving privileges, but he was facing a DUI, Article 15, and a discharge from those incidences, right? Um,
Hmm.
but he just simply stated, I was trying to kill myself. I don't know if
Oh
he
yeah.
was or not, right? But he learned something because he said that. Everybody was too scared
Yeah.
to hit him with a DUI, to hit him with driving under the influence, right? Intoxication, all that shit. And they were just like, okay, he got drunk. He wanted to kill himself. He ran his car into a pole. We're not going to touch this anymore. It's a mental health crisis. We don't want to, we don't want to, throttle the disciplinary actions right now because they won't be effective and it could cause more harm to him. And so he figured out
Right.
anytime that disciplinary actions came to him, he could just seek mental health crisis moment. And he did that
Right.
with me. He did that with me a lot. And I started catching on to it. I was like, hey, dog, I'm not going to fucking accept this anymore. You're going to stand here. You're going to fucking take this. And when we're done with this, I've done this with him too. I said, when we're done with this, you and I, we will go report together. I will take you there and I will make sure you get the help you need. But I'm going to hold you accountable right now.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
lost all of that power when I came into the picture. Everybody else was just like, this fucking guy. Oh, dude, that was nuts, bro. That was nuts.
Yeah.
That dude. I hope him the best. I hope he's doing good. I
You
wish
said
I could.
eventually he got kicked out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wish he's doing good in life today. But I was looking at people when he got his discharge, and I was looking at him, and I said, I don't think he will stay alive for a year past his separation date. I think he will
Yeah.
fucking OD on something,
Yeah.
and
Unfortunately,
that's
that
sad.
seems to be the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it has. I hope not. But yeah, he had a lot of issues. He had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think the military lifestyle just isn't for everybody, and you don't find out
Mm-mm.
until you're actually in the military.
Mm-hmm.
You have those people that believe, that they're capable of handling the military, but then once they get in the military, they realize that, hey, this isn't something that I think I can do. But they're not either intelligent enough or man enough or whatever. They're not
Even
brave
physical
enough.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not brave enough to step up and say, "Hey, I can't do this. What can I do to get out of this?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The military
Or
is definitely not for anybody. It's not for everybody.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And a lot
You
of
know,
people
eh,
enter it and find out later, like, this ain't for me. Luckily, we do like 4-year contracts and you can get the fuck out.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean there are those people that can't even deal with the 4 years. They
Mm-hmm.
can't wrap their head around of having to be told what to do for 4 years. So they lash out, they act up, they do all kinds of stupid shit, in whether that's a coping mechanism or just their only way of trying to voice their displeasure. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I loved the military. I love the shit out of it. You know, it had its up and down. And you and I both came in about during the time of GWAT, Global War on Terror.
Right.
We were deployed all the fucking time. We
Yep.
we went to the war zones. We did all that shit. So I get that this life is hard. The military life is a hard life, and we're on the easy side
I was
of
about
the
to say,
military.
you're saying this military life is hard. This military life today is not hard.
No,
This
no, no, no.
military life today is a cakewalk. This
Yeah,
is
I'm
easy
talking.
shit. When
I'm
you
talking
get
about
in
when we
when you
were.
get into conflict, it
Yeah,
becomes difficult. And if you
yeah,
can't handle this shit right now, this easy shit, this peaceful shit, when you get into conflict, you're not gonna fucking make it. You're gonna break.
yeah,
You're gonna be,
yeah,
you're gonna harm your unit.
yeah. And we've seen it. You've probably seen it where you're deployed and somebody
I've
gets in
seen it
trouble.
I've seen it in a deployment, actively in a
Yeah,
deployment where
yeah,
people are
yeah.
breaking. Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Not to
People
say
are.
they're pieces of shit for doing that, but they couldn't handle it.
Yeah,
They had no purpose being deployed.
yeah. And again, I say this from the easy side of the Air Force. I mean, yeah, I was the Marines and the Army during combat. They have a lot different, granted, but we still deploy to those same locations. We're on bases that get mortar attacks and you know insider threats. All that shit always happens. So you
Yeah,
got to be.
I had never been put into a situation where I was actively in, combat role face to face or, downrange from one another. Um,
Right.
I was on the Air Force side, so I was stagnantly stuck within a fence line that was highly susceptible to mortars and rockets and small arms fire, and I did take those constantly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there was very little that I could do except protect my equipment and protect my people. You know,
Yeah.
there was not much fighting back from my angle. Now, give me 20 minutes and I'm gonna make sure that my pilot gets his A10 in the air and fucking puts a Mark 82 on on your forehead. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's my role.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think a lot of the people that is those situations are not the place to to figure out whether or not you can be in the military.
Correct.
It was my point. You need to, and I think we're gonna be running into that wall here in the next 5-10
But
years.
if the military isn't tough for you to deal with, adversity is what it really comes down to. If you can't deal with adversity in just a regular situation, a day to day situation, not that it has to be hard all the time, right?
Right.
But when it does finally throttle up and you're truly having to deal with difficult times, if you're incapable of dealing with those difficult times because you've never experienced them before, even though you've been in the military for even several years, if you've never experienced them before, if you don't know how to handle those, are you really in the military?
Yeah.
Are you really a
Yeah.
fighting force?
Thank you for joining us, everybody. This has been Not Two Old Timers.
Do us a favor, give us a like, follow, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you want to listen to, what you want to hear.
Yeah, we're taking requests. Talk to you again next week, everybody.
See you later. Bye bye.
Bye.